It's the most heartbreaking thing your parent has ever said to you. One Christmas I asked my mom for a mini DV camera. The advertisements had described how simple it was to start capturing memories, and preserving moments in time had always fascinated me. Before long, I hosted a screening for the family. It was the big premiere of my inaugural homemade film. Titled Long, John, and Silver, I was excited to share my creative debut. I was so proud. I burned it onto a DVD. It was my magnum opus at the time. The entire family, including my father, sat down in the living room to watch the movie. I put the disc into the player that was connected to the main TV. As soon as the title card popped onto the screen, my dad got a call. Without even excusing himself, he stood up and left the room to take it. I was heartbroken. He never even asked to watch it on his own, or even with me after that. I thought he would never get to see it. After the screening was over, I decided to make a half-baked statement to my father. I took out the disc of his favorite movie, The Godfather, and replaced it with Long, John, and Silver. The two discs looked similar enough. I figured that the next time he tried to watch The Godfather, he would unwittingly put my disc in the player and watch my movie instead. After that night, I gave up on my dream of becoming a Hollywood director. My soul was crushed. I held so much resentment toward his stupid business that he cared about more than me. So much resentment toward him. Years later, I received the news that put all of that into perspective. His diagnosis was terminal. I was now a father myself, and all of the times my father would come home tired and take calls during movies felt unimportant. I understood now that he was doing it for us. My sister was his primary caregiver in his final days. I visited him as often as I could. He had withered like a raisin toward the end. He was delirious and barely capable of mustering the strength to speak in complete sentences. He had already declared that he didn't want to remain on life support for longer than it took to say his final goodbyes. Everyone made the trip to visit him. It was hard to bring myself to do it because I knew I was the last one. My sister begged me not to prolong this any longer than it needed to. Everyone else had already said what they needed to say. Everyone was ready for it to be over. When I finally brought myself to enter his room, I didn't know how to feel. I had ended up becoming just like him. I was distant. I was cold. I didn't know how to express these complicated feelings I had. We sat in silence for 30 minutes. I knew I wasn't going to leave until I felt it was time. Something told me that I just needed something to get us talking. Then it hit me. The only time I had felt my dad excited was when he would come home and watch The Godfather after a long day. It was his comfort movie, and something I enjoyed too. I decided to find it. I checked the DVD rack where all the movies used to be, I checked my old bedroom, I checked the entire living room, but no luck. I returned to my father's side, defeated. I was horrified by the thought of spending my last moments with him in total silence. Then, I noticed his bedside dresser. Tucked away in the first drawer was none other than his copy of The Godfather. He had kept it by his side until the very end. I took the old DVD player from the living room and connected it to his TV. I slid the disc in and waited for the title screen to pop up. Instead, I saw my brother's name in the credits. Long, John, and Silver. I was extremely embarrassed. I had totally forgotten that I had switched the copies out way back when. I was reaching for the eject button when I heard my dad let out a hearty laugh from behind me. I stared at him to make sure he wasn't dying right there and then. As I stared, he laughed again. He pointed to the TV and said, "That's my favorite part." I was shocked. "You've seen this, Dad?" I asked. It was no use. He was enthralled by the antics of my siblings on his bedroom TV screen. I sat down next to him and watched my movie for the first time since that night when he left the makeshift theater to take a business call. My father put his hand on mine with what little strength he had left and said, "Of course I have. I used to watch it every week, or after a long day before I got sick." Something reached into my chest and squeezed my heart. I had held so much resentment toward him for being indifferent. Then he drives it home by saying, "I'm sorry if I made you feel like I wasn't proud of you. I'm always proud of you. It's been that way since I saw your face for the first time." I wanted to cry, but I fought it back. We sat and watched the movie. We joked for a while and then said our final goodbyes. That was the last time I ever saw him. Maybe it was the most important too.